The Vikings. The very word evokes images of fierce warriors, sleek longships, and tales of daring raids. From the late 8th to the 11th centuries, these Scandinavian seafarers left their mark on history. They were much more than just raiders, though. They were skilled explorers, traders, and artisans. Their influence stretched far beyond their Scandinavian homelands. They journeyed across vast oceans and rivers. They reached the shores of North America. They traded in the bustling markets of Constantinople. The Viking story is one of adventure, ambition, and cultural exchange. They were not a unified nation. They came from different parts of Scandinavia, Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. What united them was their seafaring skill, their thirst for adventure, and their shared Norse culture. They carved out new destinies for themselves and their descendants. Their legacy can still be felt today. Place names, languages, and cultural traditions across Europe and beyond bear witness to their impact. To understand the Vikings is to understand a pivotal period in European history. It's a time of transformation and change. It's a time when the map of Europe was redrawn. To understand the Vikings' motivations, we need to look at their homeland. Scandinavia in the 8th century was a land of contrast. Towering mountains, dense forests, and fertile valleys defined its landscape. It was a land rich in natural resources, but with limited arable land. The climate was harsh. Winters were long and unforgiving. People lived close to nature. They relied on farming, fishing, and hunting for survival. Scandinavian society was complex. It was structured around kinship and loyalty. Families were grouped into clans. Clans were led by powerful chieftains. These chieftains competed for power and prestige. They sought control over resources and trade routes. The Vikings were skilled seafarers. They built sturdy ships capable of navigating both rivers and open seas. These longships were more than just vessels. They were symbols of Viking power and craftsmanship. The reasons behind the Viking expansion are complex and multifaceted. Population pressure, a desire for wealth and land, and the lure of adventure all played a part. The Vikings were driven by a potent mix of ambition, necessity, and a restless spirit of exploration. They were eager to explore the world beyond their shores. They were ready to leave their mark on history. The Vikings did not appear out of thin air. Their origins can be traced back centuries earlier to the Iron Age cultures of Scandinavia. They were a Germanic people. They shared cultural and linguistic ties with other Germanic groups. These groups included the Angles, Saxons, and Franks, who had already migrated south. The harsh environment of Scandinavia shaped their character. It instilled in them resilience, resourcefulness, and a strong sense of community. The sea was in their blood. Their ancestors had long been skilled seafarers. They navigated the treacherous waters of the North Sea and the Baltic Sea. They fished its rich bounty. They traded with neighboring tribes. Over time, they developed advanced shipbuilding techniques. Their longships, with their shallow drafts and versatile design, were marvels of engineering. These ships could navigate rivers, sail across open seas, and even be hauled over land. The Vikings were not a unified nation-state. They were a collection of independent chiefdoms and kingdoms. They were scattered across the coasts and fjords of Norway. These chiefdoms often competed with each other. They vied for resources, territory, and prestige. However, they were also bound by a shared cultural heritage. They shared a common language, religious beliefs, and social customs. The Vikings were known for their fierce independence and their love of personal freedom. They prized courage, strength, and skill in battle. But they were also farmers, fishermen, traders, and artisans. Their society was complex and multifaceted. It cannot be easily reduced to the stereotype of the bloodthirsty raider. Family was at the heart of Viking society. Kinship ties were strong. They provided a vital safety net in a world that could be unpredictable and dangerous. Families were large and extended. Several generations often lived together under one roof. They shared resources and supported each other in times of need. Within the family, there was a clear division of labor. Men were typically responsible for farming, fishing, and warfare. Women managed the household, raised the children, and were often skilled weavers and craftswomen. They also played an important role in preserving and transmitting Norse culture and traditions. Children were highly valued. They were raised to be resourceful, self-reliant, and loyal to their kin. Viking society was governed by a complex system of laws and customs. These laws were not written down in a single code. They were passed down orally from generation to generation. Disputes were often settled through negotiation or arbitration by respected members of the community. Serious crimes, such as theft, murder or betrayal, were met with harsh punishments. These could include fines, outlawry, or even death. Social status was not fixed. It was fluid and could change based on wealth, success in battle, or political influence. At the top of the social hierarchy were the kings and jarls, or chieftains. They held significant power and influence. Below them were the carls, or freemen. They made up the bulk of Viking society. At the bottom were slaves. These were individuals who had been captured in war or who had lost their freedom through debt or other misfortunes. The Vikings lived in a world filled with gods, giants, and mythical creatures. They believed in a pantheon of deities, each with its own personality, powers, and domains. Odin, the All-Father, was the god of wisdom, war, and magic. Thor, the god of thunder, was the protector of mankind. Freyr and Freya were the deities of fertility, agriculture, and love. These gods and goddesses played an active role in the lives of mortals, intervening in human affairs for good or for ill. Religion was not a separate sphere of life. It was deeply interwoven with every aspect of daily existence. The Vikings honored their gods through rituals and sacrifices, often performed at sacred groves, springs, or other natural sites. They believed that their actions in this life had consequences in the afterlife. The Vikings believed in a glorious afterlife for those who died bravely in battle, where they would be welcomed into Valhalla, Odin's hall, to feast and fight for eternity. Those who died a less heroic death would journey to Hell, the underworld ruled by the goddess of the same name. The Norse worldview was not one of blind faith, but a pragmatic one, shaped by the realities of their environment and their way of life. They believed in fate, but also that they had the power to shape their own destinies. The Viking Age burst onto the stage of history in the late 8th century. It began with a series of daring raids on unsuspecting targets. One of the earliest and most famous targets was the monastery at Lindisfarne in Northumbria, England, in 793 AD. The raid on Lindisfarne sent shockwaves through Christendom, marking the beginning of a new era. The Vikings had arrived, and they were here to stay. What drove these Scandinavian seafarers to venture out from their homelands? The reasons are complex. Population pressure, political ambition, and the lure of wealth all played a part. Scandinavia's climate was harsh and unforgiving, and its lands were not always suitable for large-scale agriculture. The Vikings were skilled seafarers who saw the sea not as a barrier, but as a highway to new opportunities. The Vikings' longships were key to their success. These ships were technological marvels of their time, fast, maneuverable, and seaworthy. They could navigate rivers and open seas with equal ease, allowing the Vikings to strike quickly and unexpectedly. They could appear on the horizon, launch a devastating raid, and disappear just as quickly, leaving a trail of chaos and fear in their wake. The initial raids were just the beginning. The Vikings were not simply interested in plunder. They were also looking for new lands to settle, new trading opportunities to exploit, and new challenges to conquer. Over the next few centuries, they would leave their mark on vast swathes of Europe and beyond, establishing settlements, forging new trade routes, and even founding new kingdoms. The Vikings fanned out in all directions from their Scandinavian homelands. They raided and traded along the coasts of Western Europe, ventured south to the Mediterranean Sea, sailed east across the Baltic Sea, and even explored the uncharted waters of the North Atlantic, reaching Iceland, Greenland, and even North America. Their voyages were daring feats of navigation and endurance. In Western Europe, the Vikings initially targeted wealthy monasteries and coastal settlements, which were relatively easy pickings for their hit-and-run raids. The Vikings' reputation for ferocity preceded them, and their very name struck terror into the hearts of their enemies. However, they were not mindless barbarians. They were shrewd tacticians and strategists. They quickly realized that there were greater profits to be made through trade and settlement. The Vikings established trading posts and settlements in key locations. They settled in England, Ireland, France, and Russia, navigating the rivers of Eastern Europe and reaching the Byzantine Empire and the Caspian Sea. They traded in slaves, furs, timber, honey, and other valuable commodities, bringing back silver, silks, spices, and other luxury goods from distant lands. The Vikings' impact on the political landscape of Europe was profound. They hastened the decline of the Carolingian Empire and contributed to the rise of new political entities such as England and France. They forged alliances with local rulers and even became rulers themselves. The Norman conquest of England in 1066 was a testament to the enduring legacy of Viking ambition and military prowess. The Vikings were not only conquerors and traders, they were also explorers, settlers, and cultural intermediaries. They brought their own Norse language, customs, and beliefs to the lands they settled. They interacted with different cultures and peoples. They absorbed new ideas and practices, adapting to their new environments. The Vikings' artistic skills were renowned. They were master craftsmen who excelled in woodworking, metalworking, and storytelling. They left behind a rich legacy of intricate jewelry, weapons, and stone carvings. These artifacts provide a glimpse into their beliefs, values, and aesthetic sensibilities. Their sagas and poems, passed down orally for generations, preserved their history, mythology, and worldview. Over time, the Vikings gradually assimilated into the societies they had conquered and settled. They intermarried with local populations. They adopted local customs and languages. In England, the Norse language and culture left a lasting impact on the English language and place names. In Normandy, France, the descendants of Viking settlers created a unique culture that blended Norse and French traditions. The Vikings' conversion to Christianity was a turning point. It marked the beginning of the end of the Viking Age. As they embraced the new faith, they gradually abandoned their raiding ways. They became more integrated into the Christian world. However, their legacy of exploration, seafaring, and cultural exchange continued to shape the course of history. The sagas are filled with tales of larger-than-life Vikings. One name echoes through the ages: Ragnar Lothbrok. A legendary warrior and king, Ragnar's exploits captivated the Viking imagination. He was said to be a descendant of Odin. He was known for his cunning, his thirst for adventure, and his insatiable appetite for glory. Ragnar's story is a tapestry woven from history and legend. It is difficult to separate fact from fiction. Some scholars believe he was a real historical figure. Others argue he is a composite of several different individuals. Regardless of his true identity, Ragnar embodies the Viking spirit, bold, ambitious, and always striving for greatness. The sagas tell of Ragnar's daring raids on Francia and England. He is said to have sailed up the Seine River. He besieged Paris, extracting a hefty ransom from the Frankish king. His exploits made him both feared and respected throughout Europe. His name became synonymous with Viking power and daring. One of the most enduring legends surrounding Ragnar is his death. Captured by King Aella of Northumbria, Ragnar was thrown into a pit of venomous snakes. As he died, he is said to have uttered a prophecy. He foretold the revenge of his sons. This tale, whether true or embellished, captures the Viking code of honor and the importance of vengeance. Ragnar's sons, inspired by their father's legacy, would indeed play a pivotal role in the Viking conquest of England. Among Ragnar Lothbrok's sons, Ivar the Boneless stands out for his ruthlessness and military genius. His epithet, the Boneless, remains a mystery. It may refer to a physical disability or a metaphor for his cunning and strategic brilliance. Whatever its origin, the name Ivar the Boneless struck fear into the hearts of his enemies. Ivar arrived in England in 865 AD as part of the Great Heathen Army. This was a formidable Viking force determined to conquer the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. Ivar quickly proved himself a brilliant strategist and a ruthless leader. He masterminded the conquest of East Anglia. He played a key role in the sack of York. His military campaigns reshaped the political map of England. Unlike earlier Viking raiders who sought plunder and tribute, Ivar and his brothers aimed to conquer and rule. They established the Danelaw in eastern England. This region was governed by Viking law and custom. The Danelaw's influence lasted for generations. It left a lasting mark on the language, culture, and place names of England. Ivar's cruelty was legendary. He was known for his brutal treatment of his enemies. He made a fearsome example of King Edmund of East Anglia. He had Edmund executed in a particularly gruesome manner. This act cemented Ivar's reputation as a force to be reckoned with. It served as a warning to any who dared oppose him. Despite his ruthlessness, Ivar was also a shrewd ruler. He recognized the importance of consolidating his power. He forged alliances with other Viking leaders. He even made peace with some of his Anglo-Saxon rivals. His reign, though marked by violence and upheaval, also brought a measure of stability to the regions under his control. Harald Hardrada, whose name means hard ruler, was a Viking warrior king of epic proportions. His life story reads like an adventure saga. It's filled with daring voyages, fierce battles, and a relentless pursuit of power and glory. Harald embodied the Viking spirit of adventure and ambition on a grand scale. Harald's early life was marked by exile and adventure. After fighting in the Battle of Stiklestad in 1030, where his half-brother King Olaf II of Norway was killed, Harald fled to the east. He spent 15 years as a mercenary captain in the Byzantine Varangian Guard. This elite unit was composed of Scandinavian warriors. It protected the Byzantine emperors. Harald amassed a fortune in Constantinople. He honed his military skills in campaigns against Arab pirates in the Mediterranean Sea and against rebels within the Byzantine Empire. He returned to Norway a wealthy and seasoned warrior, determined to claim the throne that was rightfully his. Harald became King of Norway in 1046. He ruled for 2 decades. He consolidated his power within Norway. He turned his ambitions outward. He challenged the Danish king's claim to the throne of England. This ambition led to his downfall. In 1066, Harald sailed across the North Sea with a vast fleet. He aimed to conquer England. Harold's invasion was initially successful. He landed in northern England. He defeated English forces at the Battle of Fulford. However, his triumph was short-lived. Harold Godwinson, the newly crowned King of England, marched north with his army. He met Harold's forces at the Battle of Stamford Bridge. The Battle of Stamford Bridge, fought near York on September 25, 1066, was a pivotal moment in English history. It marked the end of the Viking Age of invasions in England. Harald Hardrada fought with his customary bravery. He was killed in a hail of arrows. His death, just 3 weeks before the Norman conquest, marked the end of an era. The Viking Age, a period of unprecedented expansion and influence, was not destined to last forever. Like the ebb and flow of the tides, its power began to wane in the 11th century. A confluence of factors contributed to this decline. Internal strife, changing political landscapes, and the rise of powerful new enemies gradually eroded Viking dominance. In Scandinavia, the once fragmented political landscape was consolidating. Ambitious rulers sought to unify their kingdoms, often at the expense of Viking chieftains who had long enjoyed independence. In Norway, Harald Hardrada's death at Stamford Bridge left a power vacuum. Rival claimants fought for the throne, weakening the kingdom's ability to project power abroad. The nature of warfare was changing. European kingdoms had learned from their earlier defeats. They fortified their cities, built stronger fleets, and developed new tactics to counter Viking raids. The element of surprise, once a key to Viking success, was diminishing. The costs of mounting large-scale expeditions were rising while the potential rewards were dwindling. The Vikings' reputation for ferocity, which had once struck terror into the hearts of their enemies, began to work against them. European rulers were less willing to pay Danageld, the tribute Vikings often demanded to refrain from attacking. They were more likely to resist Viking demands, leading to protracted conflicts that drained Viking resources. Embracing new faiths, the conversion to Christianity. The Viking world was not immune to the sweeping religious changes sweeping across Europe. Christianity, which had initially been seen as a threat to Viking beliefs and a symbol of their enemies, gradually gained a foothold in Scandinavia. This religious transformation played a significant role in shaping the waning of the Viking Age. The conversion of key Viking leaders proved pivotal. In Denmark, King Harald Bluetooth converted to Christianity in the late 10th century. He saw the strategic advantages of aligning his kingdom with the dominant religious power in Europe. His conversion paved the way for the Christianization of Denmark. It also had ripple effects throughout the Viking world. Christianity offered a different worldview than the Viking belief system, with its emphasis on martial valor and the pursuit of glory in battle. Christian teachings stressed peace, forgiveness, and the importance of spiritual salvation. These ideas, while initially foreign to many Vikings, gradually took root. The establishment of churches and monasteries in Scandinavia brought literacy, education, and new forms of social organization to Viking society. The Vikings, known for their oral traditions and runic inscriptions, began to adopt the Latin alphabet and the written word. This cultural exchange further integrated Viking communities into the broader Christian world. The conversion to Christianity did not happen overnight. It was a gradual process, often marked by resistance and blending of old and new beliefs. Some Vikings clung to their traditional gods and customs. Others embraced Christianity wholeheartedly. This religious syncretism, the fusion of different belief systems, shaped the cultural landscape of Scandinavia for centuries to come. Integration and transformation, the end of an era. By the 12th century, the Viking Age, as it was known, had largely come to an end. The era of large-scale raids and conquest had faded into memory. The Vikings, once feared throughout Europe as fierce warriors and seafarers, had undergone a profound transformation. They had integrated into the societies they had once terrorized. They embraced new faiths and ways of life. The legacy of the Viking Age, however, continued to shape Scandinavia and beyond. The Viking seafaring skills and spirit of exploration did not disappear. Scandinavian merchants and sailors continued to ply their trade across the Baltic Sea, the North Sea, and beyond, forging new trading networks and contributing to the growing commercial revolution in Europe. The political landscape of Scandinavia had been irrevocably altered by the Viking Age. Stronger, more centralized kingdoms emerged, laying the foundation for the nation-states that would define the region in centuries to come. The legacy of Viking law and governance influenced legal systems in Scandinavia, England, and other regions touched by Viking expansion. The Vikings' artistic traditions, from intricate metalwork and woodcarving to storytelling and mythology, continued to inspire generations of artists and writers. The sagas, passed down orally for centuries before being written down, preserved the Vikings' tales of adventure, heroism and tragedy, ensuring that their stories would continue to captivate imaginations long after the Viking Age had ended. The Vikings' genetic legacy can still be traced in populations across Europe and beyond. Their DNA, carried on the winds of exploration and conquest, left an indelible mark on the genetic tapestry of the world. Their impact on language, place names, and cultural practices serves as a constant reminder of the enduring influence of these remarkable seafarers. Echoes of the fjord's Viking legacy in modern Norway. The Viking Age may be long gone, but its echoes still resonate in the fjords and mountains of Norway. The country's history, culture, and even its landscape bear the indelible mark of its Viking past. Drive along the western coast and you'll encounter towering cliffs carved by glaciers during the last ice age that resemble the prows of Viking longships sailing into the North Sea. Visit the Viking Ship Museum in Oslo, and you can stand in awe of the Oseberg ship, a marvel of craftsmanship that speaks to the Vikings' mastery of the sea. The Norwegian language itself is a testament to the Vikings' linguistic legacy. While Norwegian has evolved over the centuries, it still shares strong similarities with other Scandinavian languages, reflecting their common Norse roots. Place names throughout Norway, from Oslo to Trondheim to Bergen, echo Viking settlements and sagas, keeping alive the memory of these ancient places and the people who inhabited them. Beyond language and geography, Viking values and traditions continue to shape Norwegian identity. The Vikings' emphasis on independence, self-reliance, and a close connection to nature still resonate in modern Norwegian society. The spirit of exploration and adventure, which drove the Vikings to cross oceans and explore new lands, lives on in Norway's explorers, seafarers, and outdoor enthusiasts. A global legacy, the Vikings beyond the horizon. The Vikings' impact extended far beyond the shores of Scandinavia. Their voyages of exploration, trade, and conquest left a lasting mark on the world, influencing the course of history, culture, and even genetics across continents. From the rugged coastlines of North America to the bustling markets of Constantinople, the Vikings' presence can still be felt today. In the British Isles, the Vikings' impact is deeply ingrained in the fabric of society. Their raids and conquests led to the establishment of the Danelaw in England, a region where Viking law and customs held sway for generations. Their genetic legacy can still be traced in the DNA of modern-day British populations. Their influence on the English language is evident in words like berserk, skull, and knife, all derived from Old Norse. Across the Atlantic, the Vikings were the first Europeans to set foot on North American soil, establishing settlements in Greenland and Newfoundland centuries before Columbus. While these settlements ultimately failed, they stand as a testament to the Vikings' seafaring prowess and their adventurous spirit. They challenged the traditional Eurocentric narrative of exploration and discovery. The Vikings' legacy is not without its complexities. They were fierce warriors, capable of great brutality and destruction, but they were also skilled traders, explorers, and artisans who contributed to cultural exchange and innovation. Their story is a reminder that history is rarely black and white. It is a tapestry woven from threads of conquest and trade, violence and innovation, fear and admiration. To understand the Vikings is to understand a pivotal chapter in human history, a time when the world was being reshaped by the voyages of these intrepid seafarers.